Do you remember who you are? This is a way of life. We are us back in time. We are us without the pressures of modern world. When I first heard two sword blades connect, I was walking across the museum grounds at Trelleborg in southern Sweden. It was a random encounter. I was being drawn in by a force so deep that I couldn't really put my finger on it. When I saw these Viking reenactors training with swords, spears, shields, axes, real steel stuff, not this rubber stuff, real steel. My thoughts were not, what is this? My thoughts were, if I get in between those two guys, I could probably take him out. It was like I knew what to do, even though I had never done it before. This was not only my first encounter with Viking combat, but it was also my first run-in with the semi-unconditional love of the Viking community. And by semi-conditional, the only condition, and this being a very loose one, is being one of the Vikings. That's it. That's all you need to do. Be one of us. And that's when you get greeted by the infamous Viking hug. I was standing over to the side and one guy was getting killed, fell on the line. So he walked out of the line and he walked over to me and I was getting ready to, hi, how are you? And throw out my first 200 questions. But he just walked straight up to me and gave me the warmest, heartiest, sweatiest hug I've ever had. And I was like, oh, who are you? And I kind of like, hey, do we know each other? And he just looked at me funny and he walked back to the line. Because with my half-long hair at the time, I looked Viking enough to be one of them. So therefore, I was greeted by the only way a Viking really greets another Viking, and that is with the infamous Viking hug. You can go to any Viking market around fight times, and I promise you, you have never seen so many hairy, sweaty men hug it out so lovingly and so genuinely, ever. I promise. This is the greatest of all. The philosophy being behind this is that if we don't show each other all this love and care, we're just going to end up killing each other for real. With all the violence that we train and bring to the battlefield all the time, we need to hug. We need to show each other that we care about each other. Young and alone on a long road, once I lost my way. Rich I felt when I found another. Man rejoices in man. I felt like the black sheep that have spent his whole life in with the white sheep, questioning your existence and what you were doing and everything. And all of a sudden, it was like someone opened the door into another pen where all the other black sheep were running around and happily playing. And it was like coming home. It was like finding my long-lost family. Didn't matter where you came from. All that is left behind. It doesn't belong with us. I've been in this community now for quite a while. And I consider some of these people, some of my closest personal friends. Yet after 5 years' time, I have no idea what they do for a living. It just never has come up. What does come up, because we discuss more important things, is how do I open this shield with my axe? How do I reach further with my two-handed spear? Or, what makes you happy? These are the things that we discuss. And then, there was real family. I walked onto the training field at Mosgard, which is the largest Viking gathering in Scandinavia, second largest in Europe. And I was kitted up with my sword and my shield, and I was ready to go and train for this show. But no matter how many arms or I was carrying or how many shields I was carrying, I was not ready to face this opponent. Because I walked out and I turned the corner, and there she was. Me, the guy who was not looking for anything, the guy who didn't care, I was only here to fight. There she was. No. This was something much, much deeper. This was a soul connection. This is an instant recognition of souls. And we just connected. It was super magical. And then she galloped down the hill and kicked me in the face, split my lip open, started bleeding. It was love at first bloodshed, just typical Viking thing. And a year after that, we were engaged. Another year after that, we were married, right there on Mosgard Beach. I found my balance. I found my counterpart. I found my Freya to my Frey. These things are thought the best. Fire, the sight of the sun, good health, and the gift to keep it, and a life that avoids vice. To seek the fire is to seek safety. This is where our ancestors gathered, around the fire, where the food is cooked, where the cold is kept at bay, and where, most importantly, the songs and the stories were shared. Many old societies share prophecies, tales of people coming together and solving their differences and instead sharing their stories. Sharing your stories was something very, very important. Your stories was something you held on to. Knowledge is power. Information is power. No one knows this better than we do, modern man, who has all this information at the touch of a fingertip. Back then, stories and songs were the only things that carried the word. The same goes for walking barefoot. When was the last time you took off your shoes and walked barefoot? Walking barefoot, not on a paved road or a soccer stadium lawn. I mean, out in a wild meadow or in the old woods where the roots run deep and there's nothing to interfere with the ground connection. They all speak of this, the life coaches and spiritual guides, about being aware, about being present. And they say that this is the key to happiness or the way to happiness. And, well, they'll probably rob you blind by giving you this information. But I'll give you one little one for free. Enjoy the little things. A son is a blessing, though born late, to a father no longer alive. Stones would seldom stand by the highway if sons did not set them there. To remember our history is to remember those who had gone before us. Our society sits today on the basis of older societies. In the old days, especially in Scandinavia, the Old Norse, there was no fate worse than being forgotten. Being remembered in songs and stories was the way to become immortal. And this, as we all know, is what we all strive for, right? Great deeds was the way to get into the stories and the songs. And those deeds usually started on the battlefield. And this is what friends were for. But ah! Hot! Ah! Cattle die, kindred die, every man is mortal. But the good name never dies of one who has done well.